In November, I read 13 books, which equals 5,255 pages. That averages pages per day to be 175 pages, and the average page count of a book becomes 402 pages. My most read genre this month was fantasy romance. It's a trend. Fantasy romance is about 60% of my reading this year, so it's just bound to happen. The winter months tend to be my more heavy reading months, so we are definitely going to see more stats that look like this as we continue on. I would say from October to probably May is when I read the most, and then June, July, August, September are like not so good for me. May is hit or miss, but I think because of Escape, I tend to read more in that month. For star ratings, I gave out 1 5-star, 4 4-stars, 7 3-stars, 1 2-star, and 0 1-stars. I've been really liking not giving out 1-stars this year. Feels good to like my books. And my average star rating is 3.38, which I would like that to be about 3.5, but I will take a 3.38. It's close enough. I read 9 new releases, 3 backlist, and 1 last year release. And for my genre breakdown, I read 1 horror book, 3 fantasy books, 8 fantasy romance books, and 1 thriller. And now that my little bit of statistics are down, let's get right into the reviews. Honestly, I just feel like November was a month. There are some books I really liked in it, but there was also a lot of just like mediocre reads for me, things that I'm not going to be thinking about as much, but I don't think there's anything I hated really in this month. So the first book that I read was Secrets in the Dark by Darcy Coates. I gave this book 4 stars, and it actually kind of surprised me because I don't think I would have picked this up without Reader DNF. This series has been sitting on my series list for a while, and just something was not gravitating me towards reading it. And the first half of this book I really thought about DNFing, but when I got into the second half, I really liked all of what we came to realize in that. This is a sci-fi horror almost. It is a apocalyptic horror from Darcy Coates. We're following our main character who wakes up in a car in the snow. She's crashed it and she has no idea what's going on. She's kind of lost her memory about what just happened, and a guy saves her and she ends up going to his gothic mansion that's slightly creepy. He slowly tells her what exactly is going on. It's post-apocalyptic and a little bit zombie-ish, and I really did enjoy book 2 in the end. I'm actually excited to continue. All of my friends have been telling me that this was amazing. Like, a lot of them really loved this. This is a little bit of a horror romance as well because there is a romance in it, and I'm glad I continued because this one did shock me. I don't want to say too much because it is a sequel, but I will be continuing on in this series. Oh, my 5-star. I honestly was trying to remember what I gave 5 stars this month. I just forgot that I read this in this month. The Wicked King by Holly Black, which I absolutely loved and adored. This is the second book in the Cruel Prince series. I loved book 1, binged book 2 really quickly. I still haven't gotten to book 3. I really need to prioritize that. This one we're following our main character who mother was killed by a fae when she was young, and he takes her and her sisters back to the fairy world and raises them as his own. But since they are humans, they are treated a little bit differently because they're not fairy enough to fit in with the fairies, but they are given status, so they're not human enough to fit in with the humans that are treated really poorly. And we follow our main character as she's going to do anything to prove that she is worthy of being treated the same way as all the fairies. This is a little bit of a bully romance, and I really liked the cruel world in this. The second book really had me attached to the characters, and the cliffhanger at the end of this was so good. I didn't see it coming, and I'm pretty good at predicting things. I knew something was coming, but I didn't see that exact thing coming, and I was shocked. And I feel like it does take a lot to shock me in terms of I never saw that coming. I'm very good at predicting things, so I think that automatically gave it a 5-star, even though I just loved it. I really love the characters. I love our main character and her journey and her growth and her dark thoughts. I really like that we get to see a really full fleshed out character in her. I understand why people love this because obviously the series has a lot of hype and a lot of love, and I get it. Next up we have Mislaid in Parts Half Known, and this is the most recent book in the, oh my god, what are these called? Why can't I remember the name of the series? This is by Shauna McGuire. The Wayward Children series. I gave this 3 stars. Honestly, looking back, it might have been closer to a 2, but I'm not going to change it because I do remember liking elements of this. I think I was really disappointed by the lack of dinosaurs in this. I mean, this cover gives dinosaurs and then there's 5 pages of dinosaurs. I think that this felt like a continuation of the story we got in the last first book and not really its own story, and it just didn't really work for me as much because I didn't really like the last story that much. There are characters that I'm more intrigued in getting their stories from, and I think that's sometimes what bogs the series down is we keep getting random characters and I'm like, no, give me the ones I want. I'm not sure the series is really for me, but there are ones that I've loved and then there's ones that I don't love as much, so it's really hard for me to give up on this, but I always want more. There's always something I want more of. I want there to be more world building, more depth. I want them to be longer. I just think that this series in concept is something that I think would work for me, but in execution I want something different from it, and that's really hard to do to a series like this. Like, it's not fair sometimes because obviously that's my own wants and not what it is, and we're like 9 books in, it's proven that that's not what it is, so like why do I keep trying them? I don't know, but will I read the next book? Possibly. Unsure about this one. And then I read Two Twisted Crowns, which I gave 3 stars. Really let down by this one, actually. I feel like everyone screamed that this one was better than the first book, and I gave the first book 5 stars, although on recollection it's more like a 4 star. I don't really remember enough about that book to think that it really was a 5 star. It probably will not be in my favorites because I just feel like it left my brain and was like a good time in the moment book but didn't stick with me, and I feel like I want my 5 stars to stick with me. However, I was expecting to love this one and then ended up not really liking it. I feel like the romance in this book was just not it for me, and I feel like it had so much potential because the character, like the male character who the romance is, was my favorite in book 1, so I feel like that's why everyone was like, you're going to love this, but I feel like it lacked substance. I feel like because our female character has no feelings, and so I found it really hard to get invested in her romance because she had no feelings, and I understood the point was that like there are some things that magic can erase, but it just didn't work for me because like she didn't have enough personality to really make me care about her or the romance. I loved our little prince when his scenes with other people, I really thought I saw the character I loved in book 1, but his scenes with her, I just didn't get behind, and that really made this hard for me. I was really hoping for the first 2 characters the entire time. I kept wanting to flip to their chapters because they are still in this, and not really caring about those 2 people's character stories and arcs. I just wanted to figure out the plot and what was happening to Elspeth and things like that, which is the characters I loved in the first book as well. Like, that was the story I enjoyed. So I was disappointed by how much I didn't enjoy this one, but I still liked it. I still enjoyed the atmosphere and the plot, and I did love like the whole story arc and like the Nightmare and Elspeth. I feel like the Nightmare and Elspeth are something I really loved in the first book, and when we got them in the second book, I loved those elements. The second half specifically, the 2 of them were like my favorite character duo, and so I did enjoy some of this, but not all of it. I was mostly just disappointed. I think it'll be one of my most disappointed books of the year because I thought it was going to be a 5 star. Oh, next up we have a fun one. I read Captive of Wolves by Eva Chase, which is a Why Choose story that I feel like you might be sick of me talking about. I give this 4 stars. It's just a silly, goofy, fun time, to be honest. It does have depth to it, but it's not meant to be the most jaw-dropping, defining story. In this, we're following our main character who is held prisoner by these men, and they treat her awfully, and they come in like once a month to take her blood, and these other men come in and save her from these guys, but instead of letting her free, they realize that there's something special about her, and they have to keep her as well, but they keep her a lot nicer. They treat her like a real person. They like feed her. They don't just keep her in a cage and like abuse her. While she's kept prisoner by these men, she ends up falling in love with them and deciding to stay, and they're all werewolf shifters, and it's Why Choose, and I just had a lot of fun with this one. I think Eva Chase's writing is really bingeable. I really enjoy her writing, so I can't wait to continue on in this series. If you like Why Choose, I would recommend this one. I think it's fun, and if you're looking for something just to make you smile and like put on and just enjoy, this is it. This is it for you, and it was that for me. After that, I read Dark Fae, which was my first insert into the Zodiac world. I actually did try to read Zodiac Academy a few years ago, but DNF'd it really early on, and so I was excited when I tried this one, and I really liked it. This is another Why Choose, and this one's following our main character who, her brother is murdered and she has to figure out why, and so in order to do that, she signs up to go to Aurora Academy, I think is the name of it, where she has to find clues to what happened to her brother, and she realizes that she has to get really close to the like high, powerful, like ruling house people in the school, and she does that, and she ends up probably liking them a little too much, and they like her a little too much, and it's a little bit of a Why Choose. Well, it's also got a murder mystery, and I did like the murder mystery aspect a lot. I kind of wish we had gotten a little bit more plot in book 1, but I'm learning quite quickly that a lot of Why Choose, the first book, is about just like meeting the men, and a lot of the plot comes in later books. So I am excited to continue you this. I gave this one 3 stars, but sometimes I think of it and it could be a 4-star. Rating is hard, and I've figured a lot of times this year I've been kind of sitting on my ratings a little bit, and this one I'm still unsure about, so I'll probably stick with a 3-star for now at least. Next up, we read Metal Slinger. Oh my god, I had a lot of books that like I probably should change the rating for this month, because I read Metal Slinger and I gave it 3 stars. I think it might be a 2-star. I just had fun. I think that this rating is kind of clouded by the fact that I buddy read it with my friend Maria, and the two of us were talking the entire time and just like making fun of the book and like having a lot of fun buddy reading it. So I think that made my enjoyment of reading it go up to a 3-star. However, the book itself feels like a 2-star. I don't know. Everyone was telling me this was gonna be the next big romantasy, and then I just thought it was so predictable. And I just also feel like the characters lacked emotion, they lacked understanding, they lacked depth to them. A lot of the motives of our main character didn't make sense, and there's a reason for that. But I think that in order to make the reason a thing, our author almost did some sloppy writing in it. I just wish that I had cared about the characters and I understood them a little bit more. But I understand why we didn't, but it doesn't make it. I don't think a twist can make me like a book. Do you see her up there? She keeps doing this to me. No! I just don't think a twist can make me like a book and make the sloppiness of this better for me. I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. I get why other people enjoy it, I guess. But I just didn't care about anything, and the world building is weak. Like, weak. I don't understand a lot about this world. I don't even know how to explain what this book is to you. I'm just gonna move on. And next on my list is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is the 3rd book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, but the 1st book in the duology that is the 3rd and 4th book. This was also really disappointing to me. I ended up giving it 3 stars. Serpent, the Wings of Night and Ashes and Starcurse King are my favorite romantasies to ever exist. They are 5-star reads for me. I love them. I love Araya. I love Rain. This was a letdown for me. Carissa is a beautiful writer, and that's what gave it a 3 for me. Her metaphors and things she does are great. The cliffhangers are great. But this one really lacked romance to me. It happened over long stretch of time, but when reading it, I thought things were happening back to back. And so a lot of character work and the relationship the two main characters have is done off page. And I just don't like that. I really need to see them engage with each other on page for me to root for them and to understand their chemistry. I didn't really like how boring I found this. I did like the plot. I liked the underworld of this, but Misha as a character, I feel like she was sassy. She was comedic. She was a badass in Serpent. Like, we saw her in the competition in Serpent. We saw her sign up to save her best friend in a competition where only one person could survive. And then we saw her be so meek and so stuck in her trauma in this book. And that's fine, but I thought that we lost her comedic and sassiness in this book that I saw in Serpent. And that was really hard for me. This was supposed to be Grumpy Sunshine, and I didn't really find her sunshine enough. There's moments where they talked about her being sunshine, and I was like, where? I didn't get to see this on paper. It was very repetitive about her trauma and essentially the religious cult she was in, which I guess was interesting, but I just felt like it was so repetitive and I wasn't learning new things about her trauma as she went, that I just didn't enjoy the story. I can appreciate what the story was trying to do, but I didn't personally enjoy it, and reading is for enjoyment for me. Okay, I lied to you earlier because my spreadsheet has Shadow and Storms as a 4-star, but I actually know for sure this is a 3-star. This is the last book in the Legend of Thesmar series by Helen Schuer. We're following our main character, Althea, who wants to be a war sword in a world where women aren't allowed to hold blades because there's a prophecy that when a woman holds a blade, the darkness will come. This was the final book, and honestly, I just felt like this lacked the stakes of a final book. It lacked the conflict and the confidence of a final book almost. It was very rushed in its pacing. We didn't really get a lot of moments of our two characters. And yeah, I just think that the stakes in this went away. For a book that has a lot of stakes in its world building innately, with these demons coming and them having to live underground and the sun being blocked so they need to find other ways to feed them and stuff like this. Anything that has any sort of stakes is just fixed in like the blink of an eye, and so then it feels like it doesn't have stakes. And that really bothered me in the final book, because I feel like in a final book I want to feel it. I want to be like broken and then re-put together in the very end. And I just didn't feel that way, although I really liked my time with the characters. I really like Wilder and Althea still, and I liked seeing our characters from Slaying the Shadow Prince in this one. So I still enjoyed my time. It just didn't work for me as a final book in the series. And after that, I read Wayward by Blake Crouch, which is the 2nd book in the Wayward Pines series. I gave this one 4 stars. Another one that I thought I was going to DNF early on, and I'm really glad that I had to read it in Reader DNF because I don't think I would have ever picked it up. I, again, really just liked the ending of this one. I'm not really going to tell you anything about the synopsis of this story because you really do need to go in blind for this thriller story. I didn't go in blind because there's a TV show, and I had watched the TV show, and I regretted knowing too much, so I'm not going to tell tell you anything, but I did like what happened at the end of the story quite a bit. And after that, I read Games of Death and Desire by Eva Chase, and I gave that one 4 stars. This is a continuation of a murder mystery story and a Why Choose. This is the second book, and I really did enjoy this one. I thought it was quite similar to the first book. If you didn't like book 1, you probably wouldn't like book 2. I feel like they had same vibes. This follows our main character who steals a soul. She finds someone dead and she sucks their soul into them, and now they're talking in her head. And the thing is, that person has been murdered, and there's a conspiracy about the royals, and that person asks her to help them. And so she goes to an academy where she works with the men that the dead person was working with. And we see the murder mystery unfold, and we also see the magic system. I love the world building in this. It's so freaking cool. One of my favorite world buildings that I've read this year. It's really not very romance heavy. For a Why Choose, it is very, very romance light. In books 1 and 2, there's like very little romance, but I like the plot, I like the world building, so I continue to enjoy this, and I just really like Eva Chase's writing, so this was a win for me. And the last book I read this month was The Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tender Sword. You'll see a full review of this in my SBFVO vlogs to come. I hated this, but middle grade is not for me. I'm not a middle grade reader, and knowing that going in, this just like wasn't the best middle grade ever. I didn't love the characters, I didn't like the plot. It just felt very surface level. I have read some middle grade, and I know that they cannot be surface level and still middle grade, and I just think that this was just not it for me. I don't really want to go into too depth of it because I had to read this. This is not a story I would have picked for myself, but I had to read it as a judge for SBFBO. So a real better review is coming in my official vlogs for that. But yeah, this was not for me. I gave it a 2 star. Definitely not my favorite finalist. And that was how I ended my month off. Let me know down below what your favorite read of the month was. I will leave my favorite vlog that I did this month on the screen for you to check out. I had a lot of wins in this one. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, is there an owl emoji? Leave me an owl emoji. And have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.